Welcome back. Tell your own true scary story. I am a scientist. Logic, causality, and the comforting embrace of empirical evidence have always been the pillars of my existence. But ever since the commencement of Project Penrose, named after the scientist who postulated the idea of traversable wormholes, a black-budget experiment hidden away in a nondescript government facility, my trust in these principles has been violently uprooted. The aim of Project Penrose was deceptively simple: to establish interstellar communication. The methodology, though, was on the frontier of our understanding. Utilizing theories only loosely grounded in our reality, we had created a machine intended to reach across the celestial divide, past the limits of our mundane signals, to communicate with whatever, or whoever, lay out there. The machine was a monolith of technological advancement, delving deep into the concepts of quantum computing and artificial intelligence algorithms, each with its own myriad of firewalls and limitations to cease the programs from going rogue. The machine was the size of a modern bedroom, with two distinct 7-foot-long screens protruding from the front, consistently spewing information for us to decode. As the project's lead scientist, I found myself grappling with more than just the daunting technicalities of our endeavor. My team and I were not merely toying with radio signals and receivers. Instead, we were meddling with the fabric of existence, with a technology that lay precariously on the thin boundary between quantum physics and arcane cosmology. Theories of quantum entanglement, concepts of dark matter, theoretical wormhole physics, superluminal communication, and higher dimensional physics. Theories that had once seemed relegated to purely theoretical speculation had become our bread and butter. But as we continued our work, it was the Great Filter Theory that began casting a shadow over our work. The Great Filter Theory postulates an insurmountable wall in the evolution of civilizations, an obstacle that prevents them from reaching a level where we could observe them. It's an attempt to explain the Fermi paradox. If the universe is teeming with life, why haven't we made contact yet? Was it that our technology was too primitive? Or was there something else out there, filtering out civilizations advanced enough to breach certain cosmic boundaries? The work was challenging, and the questions it raised were unsettling, but it was the lure of the unknown that kept us going. We sought to peer beyond the celestial veil, to bridge the gap between science and the cosmos, and yet there was a growing sense of unease, a creeping dread that whispered of the impending ramifications of our work. As days turned into weeks, the once vibrant discussions and late-night theorizing gave way to a sobering silence. The enormity of our endeavor had begun to weigh on us. Each advancement, each step taken was a step into uncharted territory. We had become pioneers, custodians of mankind's first steps into the cosmic unknown. The air in the lab grew tense. Our once vibrant conversations faded into anxious whispers. Late-night theorizing gave way to quiet contemplation, each of us alone with our thoughts. The enormity of our task was suffocating, the implications of our success too terrifyingly paramount to contemplate. One day, our relentless pursuit bore fruit in a manner none of us had expected. It wasn't the triumphant breakthrough you might expect, but a sudden, alarming cacophony of beeping from our array of servers and machines. An anomaly, a fluctuation in the quantum field that seemed to ripple across our array of monitors. We had breached the fabric of reality and reached through the supposed great filter, carving a tunnel through the cosmic medium. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause, and we collectively held our breaths, the silence broken only by the humming of machines and the beating of our hearts. Then, almost immediately, our machines sprang to life, displaying a data stream of unprecedented complexity, a flood of information in a form we didn't understand. Our success was marred by the incomprehensibility of the data, like listening to a symphony with no understanding of music. The characters, symbols, even the structure of the information was alien, far removed from anything we could grasp with our current understanding of languages and communication. We plunged into the data, working relentlessly to make sense of the cosmic alien syntax. Days turned into nights, and then into days again, blurring into a seemingly endless cycle of decryption and analysis. Our existence narrowed down to the cryptic data stream and the daunting task of decoding it. The first inkling of the cosmic horror that awaited us came from Dr. Langley, a man of exceptional intellect and passion. Langley was an astrophysicist and cryptographer who spent his days juggling complicated algorithms and star maps. He found patterns within the cacophony, eerie repetitions and sequences that suggested an underlying structure, a language far more complex than anything known to us. His discovery sent ripples of excitement and dread through the team. We were no longer dealing with random cosmic noise. We were staring at an intelligent response. As Langley dove deeper into the alien script, the atmosphere in the lab darkened. His initial excitement faded, replaced by a palpable sense of unease. He began to work alone, poring over the data for hours on end, growing more aloof and distant. It was as if the symbols had hypnotized him. I remember finding him one night, hunched over his workstation, his usually vibrant eyes hollow and haunted. The sight of him pale and shaken, staring at the incomprehensible data still sends shivers down my spine. His obsession had started to take its toll, and his transformation was our first tangible encounter with the terror that lay beyond the Great Filter. Langley's spiral into madness was a swift, terrifying descent. He grew erratic, haunted by dreams that he refused to speak about, and his work became a frenzied scramble to decipher the alien syntax. His condition deteriorated rapidly, a horrifying testament to the unseen dangers lurking in the unknown realms of the cosmos. He once whispered to me, his voice a hoarse croak, "They're not just messages, they're thoughts. They're nightmares." He refused to elaborate further and grew distant, a hollow shell of his former jovial self. The man I had known as Langley was no more. He was replaced by a shell, possessed by the obsession to unravel the cosmic horror. We watched helplessly as he unraveled, the scientific thrill of our breakthrough overshadowed by the tangible horror that it brought along. He began looking more and more disheveled every time he walked through the doors. Despite the gut-wrenching sight of Langley's downward spiral, we pressed on. Our scientific curiosity turned into a desperate need to understand. It was a stormy night when we finally cracked a full section of the code. A complex algorithm, designed by the combined efforts of our remaining team, began to translate the alien data into something we could comprehend. The process was painstakingly slow. The combinations of terabytes of information and the myriad of processing power would have taken lifetimes to decode with a normal supercomputer. But for our technological monstrosity, it took mealy hours. As the first translated lines appeared on the screen, I felt a thrill of achievement mixed with a rising tide of terror. The translated message was fragmented, broken, yet undeniably clear. It was a warning, an urgent plea from an advanced civilization that had traversed the Great Filter, only to encounter the horrors that awaited on the other side. The translations were vague, alluding to a cosmic abyss teeming with entities beyond our comprehension. Ancient beings that straddled the thin line between existence and oblivion. The truth struck us with the weight of a collapsing star. We had not reached out into a universe teeming with advanced civilizations. Instead, we had clawed our way into a cosmic nightmare, an abyss filled with horrors that could obliterate not just our minds, but the very fabric of our reality. The realization was shattering, the implications catastrophic. We had breached the Great Filter, yes, but it was not a gateway to a federation of advanced civilizations. It was a barrier, a protective shell that kept the cosmic horrors at bay. We had torn through that shell, creating a pathway for the unspeakable entities to enter our realm. The Great Filter was not a test of advancement. It was a test of survival, a line that should never have been crossed. And we had crossed it. Meetings after meetings went by discussing our project and its implications. Eventually, the project was green-lighted to continue. This decision would see portions of the team walk away, some leaving what they considered the climax of their life's work in the wind, too daunted by the possibilities of what pursuing this quest for knowledge might unleash. We regrouped with the team we had left and pressed on. After months of no progress, we decided to take a multitude of different approaches to the project. It was in one of these attempts that we implemented what I would later call the mirror. It was simply one of the dozen or so machines we had hooked up to aid in our experiment. We used it to monitor the quantum fluctuations we were creating, the ripples in reality, as Langley put it. With the machine now having its third otherworldly breathing 3D monitor, the sight of the machine grew more and more unnerving. It was as if we had completed a prophecy of 3 cosmic rituals. One day, the mirror started showing not the data or the graphs we were accustomed to, but a reflection of our world. The effect was startling. It was like looking into a perfect mirror, down to the smallest detail. We could see ourselves moving around, see the other screens with their streams of data, even see the dust particles floating in the air. We tried restarting it, refactoring the code, changing the algorithm, but nothing changed. The mirror persisted. Eventually, we decided that it was too dangerous to have parts of Project Penrose going rogue, even if it seemed harmless. So we came to the decision to unplug the mirror, but as we pulled the power, it never turned off. The mirror, it seemed, was alive with its own power, defying all laws of logic, as if the code and logic given to it was imbuing it with a cosmic power. The team was even further divided. Some wanted to scrap the mirror, chalk it up to a weird glitch, say it malfunctioned and dispose of it and move on. But a few of us, myself and Langley included, saw it as an opportunity. We saw it as a manifestation of the strange cosmic phenomena we were trying to explore. During our next meeting, the possible implications of seemingly free energy from thin air, as if we had created the impossible perpetual motion machine of electricity, were the main points for the increase in funding for the project, allowing us to continue our research in peace. So we kept the mirror. Days turned into weeks as we tried to understand the mirror. We studied it, probed it, took measurements. Eventually, we noticed a disturbing trend. The mirror was no longer just reflecting our reality. It seemed to be capturing moments from our imminent future. A ripple in a water glass before it was touched, a paper fluttering to the ground before it was dropped. Every event displayed on the mirror's screen a few moments before they transpired in our world. The initial fascination soon turned into fear. The implications were too terrifying to comprehend. A harbinger of a reality we had unwittingly invoked, a world where the line between reflection and prophecy was becoming increasingly blurred, the concept of free will tethering towards an illusion. We had opened a door, and now we were left staring into a mirror reflecting our darkest fears. Our doom not only foreseen but made manifest in the cold glow of the screen. With every passing moment, the looming dread grew, coiling around us like a serpent as we realized that we were not just observing a reflected reality. We were living it. As I walked past the mirror, I caught a glimpse of my reflection. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as my blood ran cold. My reflection was smiling. I remember it with an icy clarity, a slow, deliberate grin that never reached my eyes, which were wide with horror. A grin I had never given, a grin that seemed to stretch beyond the capabilities of any human face. The moment passed, and my reflection returned to mirroring my shock and horror. But the vision was seared into my mind, the image of my doppelganger's hideous smile haunting me. The next day it happened. Dr. Kowalski, our resident cryptographer, had been working tirelessly to completely decode the alien transmissions we had intercepted. He was a frail old man, but his spirit was indomitable. That day, he walked into the lab, his face pale but his eyes burning with an intense light. "I have it," he said, holding up a sheet of paper. "The first piece of the real message. I've decoded it." The room was silent as we all turned to look at him. It was a moment of triumph, a breakthrough we had been waiting for. But before he could read the message out loud, we all noticed it. The mirror. The reflection had stopped mirroring us. The mirrored versions of ourselves were no longer copying our movements. Instead, they were staring at Kowalski, their eyes wide and fixed on him. It was eerie, unsettling. The room went cold and a sense of dread filled the air. Suddenly, the other monitors flickered and tuned into the same curse that had been affecting the mirror. Each screen that flickered on, for a split second, was the same effect of the unsettling mirror we had been studying for so long. But just as soon, one after the other, all the heads slowly turned towards Kowalski, as if they were all being imbued with a message. All separate realities stuck in their own timelines, forming a symphony of unique dimensions that were tied together by a singular cosmic enigma. Suddenly, as if he was in a trance, Kowalski started walking towards the mirror, paper in hand, and then something inexplicable happened. He didn't stop. He walked into the mirror, just like that, as if the screen was nothing more than a veil, a doorway. And as he walked into it, his mirrored version walked out. The entity that walked out was a perfect copy of Kowalski, the same frail body, the same clothes, even the same triumphant smile. But his eyes were different. They were filled with terror, a deep, primal fear that chilled me to the bone. He looked at us, his gaze pleading, desperate. Then he began to speak.
This place, it's not bound by the rules of our universe. Physics as we know them don't apply. Time bends and refracts like light underwater. I can see the past, our past, the Earth, back to when dinosaurs roamed. And the future, it's too horrible to describe. There are structures here. Monoliths stretching beyond what I can perceive. They pulse, breathe as if alive, made of a material that seems to ripple and shift, appearing simultaneously solid and ethereal, like a nightmare solidified. There are colors here that we don't have names for, that I'm sure our eyes weren't meant to perceive. They hurt to look at, a pain that's more than just physical, as if the very act of observing them is a violation of our natural laws. But worst of all, the entities. They aren't just alien, they are wrong. They move in impossible ways, folding through dimensions we don't even have words for. They don't simply exist. They are existence itself, their entropy, their time. I feel them in my mind, a violation more intimate and horrifying than I could ever articulate. It's as if they are peeling back the layers of my consciousness, rummaging through my thoughts. They're not just examining me, they're rewriting me, changing who I am, warping my very sense of self. Horrifying is too small a word. It's cosmic. I can feel my sanity fraying, my sense of self dissolving.
His words hung in the air, a chilling testament to the horrors that lay beyond the mirror. We could only watch, paralyzed with fear, as he finished his account. He was shaking, trembling, as though the sheer act of recounting his experience was causing him physical pain. Suddenly he turned to me.
"We've been here before."
Those were his last words. Suddenly, unseen forces began to drag him backwards, pulling him towards the mirror. His hands clawed at the air, desperate for something to hold on to, but it was no use. Within seconds he was gone, swallowed by the mirror once more. All that was left was the piece of paper with his message scrawled on it. A silence descended on the room, punctuated only by the soft hum of the machines and our own ragged breaths. The screens turned black, then flickered back to normal, all except the mirror. As it lay in static, Langley, transfixed on the screen, began to hold his head in pain. Confused, I looked at the mirror and began to see a form emerging from the center. I can only describe it as a cosmic light of knowledge. It was wrong. Something not meant for human eyes to see. That's when Langley began to yell, "Turn away!" "Don't look at it!" he screamed. We turned our heads away in horror as Langley went on to scream a blood-curdling scream, all while never taking his eyes off of the mirror, entranced by its static, a self-inflicted horror until it finally flickered back to life. When we tried to ask him what he had seen, what had happened during the moments of apparent torment, he never said a word. He simply grabbed the note left on the floor and laid it out on the main table. It read, "The skies are now open. Watching." That night, I woke to the piercing alarm of the lab's fire system. As I raced toward the lab, the smoke was thick, almost choking. I could see flames devouring our work, our dreams, and our nightmares. At the center of it all was Langley, a silhouette against the inferno, laughing, a hollow, terrifying sound that echoed through the corridors. "I've done it!" he screamed over the roar of the flames. "I've saved us!" His words were punctuated by his chilling laughter, devoid of sanity. He had set the lab ablaze, hoping to destroy the connection we had established with the cosmic horrors. The aftermath was catastrophic. Our groundbreaking work was reduced to charred rubble. Langley was committed to a mental health facility, a ghost of his former self, babbling about nightmares and cosmic horrors, a promising scientific mind, a fruitful career, a faithful friend, now gone. The rest of us were left with the shattered remains of our dreams, and the harrowing knowledge of what lurked beyond the Great Filter. The project was quietly disbanded, and we were scattered to the four winds, left to grapple with the aftermath alone. But the horror of what we had discovered, the cosmic entities waiting beyond the filter, stayed with me, a constant chilling reminder of our insignificant existence in this vast universe. So I write this now, a confession, a warning, a plea for forgiveness. We meant to broaden our understanding, to push humanity into a new era of enlightenment. Instead, we peeked into the abyss and found it staring back at us, filled with horrors beyond our comprehension. In our quest for knowledge, we had almost brought about our own doom. As I sit alone, haunted by what we unearthed, I can't help but wonder, was Langley the mad one, or are we, the survivors, the ones truly lost? Only time will tell if we escaped the horrors beyond the great filter, or if we simply delayed the inevitable. Remember this tale and fear the unknown, for sometimes it is not our place to uncover the mysteries of the universe, especially those protected by a cosmic filter. For those lurking horrors, ancient and terrifying, are beyond our understanding, and they should remain so. In our hubris, we nearly unleashed an apocalypse, a fate I wouldn't wish upon the worst of our kind. A fate worse than death, it's a haunting thought, one that lingers and gnaws at the mind. A lasting horror that lives long after the flames of our ambition have been extinguished.